we have located both photographic and video evidence, yes.
Okay.
Hello, welcome. Today we're gonna talk about the biggest UFO incident in Brazil. We have a whole city of witnesses. Citizens calling the police and fire department to capture very weird animals. The Brazilian military blocking roads. An American Air Force aircraft landing nearby. Aliens chased, hunted, and shot down. A military policeman dying days after capturing a creature with his bare hands. Animals strangely dying at the zoo. Men in black trying to buy witnesses. And the military denying it all. Thanks to a group of 7 brave ufologists that went there to investigate, now we know at least 20% of what happened back then. So, let's go to it. On January 20th, 1996, around 1 a.m., on a farm located 10 kilometers or 6 miles from Varginha, Orelina de Freitas noticed the cattle running scared on the field. She went to look out the window and saw a big silver object flying over the farm, about the size of a bus, shaped like a submarine, without windows, releasing white smoke from the side, where it looked to be damaged, but producing no sound. She called her husband Eurico de Freitas, and the both of them kept watching that strange object flying low, 5 meters or 16.5 feet from the ground, for about 40 minutes. In the next week, UFOs kept being reported among the citizens and ufologists. On the morning of the 20th, in Sao Paulo, the traffic controller, Marcos Fires, is told to accept a C-17 aircraft from the United States Air Force, which later flew to Campinas, and request 2 SH-1D Brazilian Air Force helicopters to Varginha. Also in the morning of the 20th, at 10:30 a.m., around the area of Jardim Andir and Santana neighborhood, firefighters get a call to rescue this strange monkey that was scaring the residents, and kids were even throwing rocks at it. Witnesses report having seen the firefighters going inside the woods. Soon after that, a truck from the Sergeant Army School showed up and parked. Soldiers ran inside the woods. Later 2 rifle shots were heard. The soldiers left the woods, carrying big black bags, one still and one with something moving inside. They got inside the truck and left in a hurry. Later that day, around 3 p.m., Claudia Xavier, 22, and the sisters Liliane Silva, 16, and Valkyria Silva, 14, were coming back home walking after working on a house and decided to take a shortcut through an empty lot. That's when they saw a creature, crouching, next to a wall, 7 meters or 23 feet away in broad daylight. It was short, had brown oily skin with veins showing through, skinny long arms, a big head with 3 protuberances on the forehead, big red eyes without eyelids, cornea or iris, 2 tiny holes for the nose, and a slot for the mouth, no hair and no clothes. Liliane screamed, and the creature turned its head slowly toward them. Claudia reported having telepathic communication with it. She said she felt the creature was suffering, and asking for help. The girls ran away. And when they arrived at the house, they told Luisa Silva, mother of the 2 sisters, that they had seen the devil. Since they arrived home crying a lot, and very scared, Luisa insisted on going to that place to try to solve the mystery of what they had seen. When they arrived there, about 25 minutes later, the construction worker, Enrique Souza, who was working next to the place, told them that the firefighters had already taken that weird animal. What the mother found as evidence at that place was a horrible strong ammonia-like smell and a 3 long fingers footprint. That evening, the military policeman Marco Eli Chereze told his family that he was on a special mission and that he might have to stay out all night. Around 8 p.m., Chereze and his partner Eric Lopez were passing by the same street the girls were in earlier. And then they saw another creature. Chereze jumped out of the car and grabbed it with his bare hands. He placed it on the back seat of the car and noticed it had a broken leg, so they drove off to the nearest health post, which refused to have that thing there. At some point in the car ride, he got a puncture by the creature under the left arm, but didn't care much about it. They took the brown thing to the regional hospital of the south of Minas. X-rays were taken, and a doctor was invited to perform surgery to try to fix that leg. The doctor, who prefers to remain anonymous, reports that no anesthesia was used, that the blood coagulated immediately when collected, and to have had telepathic communication with the creature. In the hospital, right after midnight, Dr. Fernando Prado, who worked there as coordinator for the hemodialysis department, saw the body of the creature from about 4 meters or 13 feet away, but was quickly told to leave the place. At 5 a.m. on the 21st, the creature was transferred to Humanitas Hospital. Witnesses on that night and the next few days watched firefighters, army trucks, and police cars in both hospitals. On the 22nd, At about 5 p.m., the body of that creature, dead at this point, is placed in a wooden box. A group of trusted doctors studied the creature. One of them got closer with tweezers. He pulled out what was considered to be the tongue. It was black and slim, and when released retracted back to its original place. The tiny coffin was placed on the back of a military truck, and the convoy drove non-stop towards the Sergeant Army School. At 4 a.m. on the 23rd, a convoy leaves the Sergeant Army School towards Campinas. According to statements of the military involved in this mission, creatures were taken to the University of Campinas, Unicamp. There, scientists were asked to leave their laboratory working stations. Workers and students saw the military trucks, and also a big unusual number of American and Brazilian military officers, and surprisingly NASA agents walking around the campus for days. At some point in the next few days, creatures were flown to the United States. Now, back to Chereze. He had told his father, Naldo Chereze, that the rumors around the city about strange creatures being captured were serious. That perforation under the left arm started to become infected. In a couple of days he had to have surgery to try to remove the infectious area, which unfortunately didn't help at all. The very next day he was hospitalized. While there he admitted to his sister that he was punctured by one of those creatures. He kept getting worse and worse, and then transferred to another hospital, taken to the ICU, and still had no response to any antibiotics. Dr. Cesario Furtado, the physician who treated him, states he never saw any other patient die like that throughout his entire career. It just looked like all his body immunity was turned off. He also adds that his HIV test was negative. Dr. Cesario also states that the soldier confessed to him, while hospitalized, how he was hurt during the capture of a very strange animal. Chereze died on February 15, 1996, at just 23 years old. His family was denied having a funeral, and it took them over a year to have the death certificate. When they finally got the document, it was written that he died of pulmonary septic thromboembolism, incipient myocarditis, and acute liver congestion resulting from septicemia. And the most unusual finding, his blood had 8% of unknown toxic substances. The coroner that performed the autopsy, Dr. João Giannini, says that he never saw a furuncle cause septicemia and result in death. In March of 1996, UFOs were still being sighted around the region. On April 21, at the local zoo of Varginha, Leila Cabral, biologist and zoo director at that time, went in the morning to check the animals. When she arrived there, the doorman informed her that the fire department went there earlier with a very strange animal that could only be given to her. Since she wasn't there, they left and never returned. That night, Terezinha Klef, 65, was at a birthday party at the zoo and decided to get away to have a cigarette. And suddenly, she saw a very ugly animal with red shiny eyes. It was just like the one the girls described, but the difference was that this one was standing and had some kind of helmet on its head. Within a couple of days, animals started dying without an apparent cause. 5 in total. A tapir, 2 deer, an ocelot, and a blue macaw. The veterinarian Marcos Mina couldn't find a logical cause for why they died, all within the same days, and from similar circumstances since they were eating different food and located at different areas of the zoo. Tissue samples from the bodies were sent to a third-party lab, which couldn't find a proper cause of death, but found an unidentified caustic substance in one deer. On April 29, when this was already all over the news, national and international, Luisa, the mother of Liliane and Valkyria, got unexpected visitors at their house, 4 unidentified men in black suits and ties, offering a large amount of money. All they had to do was to go on a specific TV show that they would choose and read a script, saying that they were wrong and that it was nothing but a hoax. To avoid any further threats, they decided to take it to the news, and the family was never bothered by them again. On May 11, Dr. John Mack, psychiatrist and professor at Harvard Medical University, interviewed and analyzed Liliane, Valkyria, and Terezinha, concluding that they were telling the truth about what they saw and that they were traumatized by it. On May 29, in almost complete secrecy, for the first time in the history of Brazil, a state minister meets with the high command outside the capital. The army minister, together with 29 generals, 8 commanders, directors, and heads of departments meet in Campinas. Until July there were still witnesses of creatures along roadsides and in the woods. The Sergeant Army School performed various military search missions along the Rio Verde, in the forest and surroundings. Now, what did the military say? The military police investigation concluded that the creature that the girls saw was a mentally disabled man, Luis Antonio da Paula, known in the city as Mudinho, and that he was disfigured by a hailstorm. Well, the hailstorm happened 3 whole hours after the sighting of a red-eyed, naked, hairless, oily creature. The girls, until this day, absolutely deny that it was him. They had known that man their entire lives. Their families got together, and they saw him constantly in front of their father's bar. Plus, they saw the creature at a 5 meters or 16.5 feet of distance, at 3 p.m., with a clear view. And more recently a new witness, Rubeo Ladera, came out and said that on Saturdays Mudinho was at the gymnasium, that he was there every Saturday, and that even if Mudinho wanted to go there where the girls were, there were military blockages right on that path, stopping anyone to get close to any sighting place. About Chereze, the official statement said that he died of a very strong hospital infection. But it doesn't explain the unidentified toxic substances on his body, or why the family couldn't get a proper funeral for him. To explain the large number of trucks from the Army in Virginia, from January 20th to the 22nd. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The Sergeant Army School informed that the vehicles were sent to the car workshop Automaco Comercial e Importadora for wheel balance and steering alignment. However, this company stated that it does not work on weekends. About the great movement of soldiers at the regional hospital, they said it was due to the exhumation of the body of a young soldier. But that was a lie, because this happened on the 30th. Plus, no one could explain why the army was following an exhumation that closely. For the large movement of soldiers at the Humanitas Hospital, they said it was because of the arrival of new equipment for heart transplants. But the army doesn't have that function. Hold on, this keeps going. To explain the large movement of military personnel at Campinas University, they said that they were following the studies on the bones of the dead in the Araguaia gorilla. But these bones were already there for 4 years. The NASA agents in Unicamp were there to look for future astronauts. Strangely, they didn't decide to go look for those on the top military engineering and pilot schools and universities all over Brazil. And until this day, the only astronaut Brazil ever had was chosen after a very hard public contest in 1998. And now, I present to you the very best excuse. During a documentary footage for Discovery Channel, Major Calza said, "There were a couple of dwarfs in Varginha Hospital. The lady was pregnant, and she had a baby, so the army caught this creature, put it in the truck and took it to the hospital where people said to have found a couple of aliens. But creature? And since when does the army give rides to babies? Or how come no one in the city saw this very distinctive couple?" Well, according to all the government organs, this was nothing but a sequence of very unusual coincidences. So, what do you think? Thank you so much for watching until the end. Please comment, like and subscribe. Also turn on the notifications bell to see our upcoming videos. See you next time.